So, in light of the news of AC Shadows launch numbers being, at least on their face, fairly good. For example, the official Assassin's Creed X page posted on the 22nd that they, on the second day of the game's launch, or I guess third because it's 20th, 21st, 22nd, whatever. They had 2 million players. Now, as always, word choice is important. They say players, not copies sold, which is to be expected. They also have the Ubisoft Plus thing where you can sign up for like $18 a month and then you can play the game, or like their whole first party catalog. You can just play whatever game you want. Honestly, if you like AC, it's not a bad value. You play AC Shadows, you then boot up like AC Black Flag, all of it's included, which is cool. All of the DLC as well, I think. Maybe not. I'm not totally certain, but either way, there's some players certainly playing through there. They gave out a lot of codes. They sent out giveaway codes. They've done a lot of stuff like that. So they haven't necessarily sold 2 million copies, at least when they posted this, but they said they had 2 million players, which not a bad stat. I mean, definitely better than a million, better than if they said nothing at all. So they're proud of that. I've spoken to people that work at Ubisoft who have said that senior leadership, or at least their bosses, are pleased with the numbers that they're seeing. And that jives with the fact that they're disclosing it, because typically when a company is not thrilled with player numbers, they just don't talk about them. They get really quiet, kind of cagey and weird. And they're like, we're glad to see players so engaged. And they don't really mention anything specific. So they're at least coming out and saying that. Tom Henderson did a little collection of behind the scenes data. He said, had to remove the original Valhalla Shadows tweet because of the sourcing of the Valhalla information. Basically, he tried to compare player numbers, but the numbers he was giving weren't like the most reliable. So he redid it and came out with this. Behind the scenes data via Ubisoft sources. So these are from people within the company who are leaking the raw stats, who have previously leaked data when it didn't look good for Ubisoft, such as information about the underperformance of Star Wars Outlaws, Avatar. So these are the same sources he's brought up before that shared bad info that didn't make Ubisoft look good. And these people are the same ones that are saying this. Valhalla day one player numbers, 2.55 million. This is kind of the bar. Valhalla was the most performative, I guess, game in the AC franchise's history. It's the $1 billion game. Whether it sold and moved the most individual number of copies isn't really clear, but it did make the most money of any game they've ever put out in the franchise. So Valhalla is like the bar. Now, I've said since like 6 months ago, a year ago, I don't see a way that Shadows could possibly outperform Valhalla. Valhalla was like lightning in a bottle. It was a Viking game at a time when Viking stuff was like peak. It launched like right in the midst of COVID, so people were stuck at home more often. It really was like the perfect game at the perfect time if you just wanted a massive escapist fantasy game. It kind of served that purpose, and it did very, very well. So I don't think anybody was expecting it to outperform Valhalla. So establishing day one player numbers at 2.55 million. Again, this is players, not copies. Okay, players. That's the verbiage that's being used. Odyssey day one was at 430,000 on day one. 430,000 players. Same verbiage. Okay. Odyssey was a slow burn game, and prior to Shadows' launch, what was expected was that Shadows was going to do roughly what Odyssey did, because pre-order numbers were, I think the verbiage they used was roughly in line with Odyssey. So everybody kind of was expecting that Shadows would have similar player counts to what Odyssey did, and that it probably would sell better in the long term as time went on, but it would just be a matter of, you know, how word of mouth goes and all of that. That's kind of make or break for these types of games. But all we know right now for sure is that on day two, according to Ubisoft inside sources, they had hit 2.2 million players on day two. Now, they don't have the day one player numbers from these sources, but they have day two player numbers. And that means that according to current tracked stat trajectories, whatever, internally at Ubisoft, Shadows is expected to do about 6 million players in the first month, with Valhalla having done 8, which is like way better than I think anybody was expecting. Now, what you're seeing now is some people that are insistent that Shadows cannot have done well And so they're trying to find things to tear apart and poke holes in, which absolutely some of these players are on Ubisoft Connect Plus, whatever they call it. That's true. A lot of them aren't. A lot of them are playing the game. Shadows also has the highest peak concurrent player count of any AC game on Steam, which also is significant and is considered a W within Ubisoft. And so no matter which way you break it, it's doing better than I think a lot of people expected it to do. I think at the very least we can say that, and it is categorically not the like colossal flop that I think some people thought it would be. You don't have to like the game. You don't have to love it. You don't have to do it. Like, that's fine. But the numbers are pretty clear. It's performing well. It's performing well. You know, is it enough to like prevent some sort of corporate shuffling? I personally don't think so. I think that's been written in the stars for like a year or two now. So I think there still will be some corporate shakeup, but you know, this probably delays that a good bit. And it means that AC is going to continue to be doubled down on. I think this just gives them more confidence in Hexe, in the Black Flag remake. And it certainly gives a lot of morale to the team that, I mean, I can only imagine what it must have been like to work on that team over the last year. Like, can you imagine basically having the entire company's fate on your shoulders? And there's been people, do I have the tweet pinned? I don't know if I do. There was a tweet that was going around of somebody just being like, shout out to the team that worked on it because they endured a lot to get here. And they did. Some of it was self-inflicted, certainly. But I mean, either way, they managed to put out a game that people are connecting with and playing. And that deserves some credit. I think what you're also seeing now is that there's a faction of people online that are now trying to find anything that they can latch onto to complain about with Shadows or to say that Shadows is bad. I've seen people that have set the game onto the easiest difficulty and then complain that the AI isn't responding quickly or isn't reacting to their behaviors quickly, which is pretty funny and a little bit pathetic. Because like when you're trying to farm outrage content by like messing with in-game accessibility settings, like I think we're getting a little silly. There's also been people that are like, you know, they have one specific bug that happens and then that clip gets shared across the internet as if that's what the game is. And so you just got to be cautious with that. Now, the newest thing is that there's people complaining. I don't know Stuttering Craig, to be just completely transparent. All I know from Stuttering Craig is that he did that breakdown on DSP like 2 years ago, which was goated. So pog to Craig for that. But I don't know any of his other stuff. But he posted this tweet. Here it is, all 2 hours of Assassin's Creed Shadows credits. I just want to repeat that the credits are over 2 hours. I don't know if he's complaining about it, but this started getting shared on social media of people complaining that the credits are long. Therefore, it's a sign of mismanagement and of corporate boondoggling. I don't even know what the accusation really is. But it started getting shared around and people were saying like, just another example of how terrible this is. Look at a game like Disco Elysium made by 20 people. Therefore, this is bad. Like, I don't even know what the accusation is. And I mean, Katie replies, I mean, yeah, that's what it takes to make a AAA game. Programmers, art, animation, localization, audio, VAS, modeling, marketing, PR, QA, legal, consultants, design, VFX, writing, PMs, TAMs, vendors, partner agencies, and more. I'm happy to see credit lists like this, big credit lists like this. And the other thing is, a lot of game developers, they don't put partners into credits. They don't put in contracted employees in the credits. Dell, mentioned this where he said most AAA games would have 2 hour credits if they actually credited everyone fairly. This is a huge scandal within like the dev community, is that people will work on a game for 6 months, a year, whatever, on like a contracted basis. Maybe they help with the combat. Maybe they help with character designs, concept art, or music, whatever it is. And if they don't hit a certain like standard, they're not included in the credits, which doesn't sound like a big deal. But if that means that you can't put it on your resume, that's a big deal. If you're like, hey, I did some of the music for Red Dead 2. And then like, oh, but you were only there for 9 months, so you don't get to be put in the credits. That sucks. Like, that really sucks. So that's part of the reason that like these credits are so freakishly long, is because they seem to be including everybody that touched this game in some, to some extent, which I think is a good thing. When you start complaining that the credits are long and that too many people built something, like I think we're starting to really grasp at straws. Yeah, and who cares? I mean, that's the thing. You can skip the credits if you really don't like it. It's like the people complaining that you're playing a game that has like narrative RPG elements. I don't think it's a great narrative RPG, but it has like romances, for example. And like these same people are like, every game I play, I end up in a gay romance. This game's woke. It's like, bro, you're the one choosing those dialogue options. Every game I play, I just happen to be flirting with men constantly. I don't know what's going on. It's like, you're the one doing that. It's like complaining, I keep going out to bars and every time I end up with a man in my bed. These bars are woke. It's like, bro, at some point I gotta look at you and just be like, I mean, no shade, but I mean, you're complaining about this a lot. Like a lot. Okay, interesting. So I mean, all of this, I just think at the end of the day, what we can say is that the performance of Shadows has been good. I would say it's outperforming what certainly I was expecting, and I'm guessing what Ubisoft was expecting. I think Ubisoft was expecting probably to be roughly in line with Odyssey, and instead it's actually outperforming Odyssey by a significant margin. And even if you say like, Odyssey maybe got up to 600 players or 600,000 players or 700,000 by day 2, which I'm not sure it did, because Odyssey was a weird game. It kind of came out of nowhere, and it was the word of mouth that helped sell the game in the long term, but it was kind of a weird game that just kind of came out of nowhere. But either way, I mean, the numbers are very strong, and I think they're very happy with those numbers. Now, something like Shadows also depends a lot on expansion sales. It depends on those microtransaction sales, the cosmetics and stuff like that, the in-game stores that they have. It relies on the future updates that they're going to do. So this isn't the end of the story. Like, Shadows is supposed to be a game that is doing continuing revenue for the next 2-3 years. That's what it's designed to do. There's of course like the rumored and leaked like co-op mode that they're gonna do, where they're gonna let you have a friend play as Yasuke while you play as Naoe and stuff, which they probably eventually do, maybe even by the end of this year. So it's going to continue to have eyes on it, and people are going to continue to watch it and see how it does. But I think no matter which way you break it down, you have to admit that the player counts for Shadows are better than probably everybody was expecting. And I think Ubisoft certainly is pleased with those numbers. How long that lasts, who knows? But I think the people that were insisting that this was going to be some colossal flop have been proven wrong, because even if it's not like on the level of Valhalla, it's certainly not a flop. Even if it performed roughly in line with Odyssey, that's I think what they were expecting. That would have been like, yeah, it's pretty good, because Odyssey did pretty well. I think he said Odyssey did 3.4 million in its first month. Those are not bad numbers. So there you go. Interesting little update. Shadows, the game that they struggled with, seems to have done fairly solidly. Again, I think that Ubisoft still sees the corporate reshuffling and things that we've expected for a long time. Of course, just like last week, there were reports that they were in talks about creating a separate entity. In my video talking about it, I said that my expectation is that they probably will go and do like, I think what they're going to do is they're going to create a separate entity that is owned by Tencent and the Game On Brothers. That separate entity will continue to hold the rights to like AC Shadows or to Assassin's Creed, to Rainbow, like to the big stuff. And then I think they're going to splinter off into a separate entity, the lesser known IP or the less valuable IP, and they're going to start to sell shares of that elsewhere. If you were to speculate, how much of a boost in subs do you think Ubisoft Plus got from Shadows? I mean, frankly, I personally don't know anybody that used Ubisoft Plus. Back in the day with like Anthem, everybody I knew that was trying Anthem was using EA Access, whatever they called it. If you remember Anthem, they had that thing where you could like buy the EA subscription and play it that way instead of having to pay $60 for it. But with Shadows, everybody in my like immediate circle, vicinity, friend group, everybody I know just bought it. But I'm sure that there's a lot of people who were like curious who decided to go through Ubisoft Plus to save money, which I think is a responsible, reasonable thing to do. I mean, if you just want to try it, it's not going to take you more than a month to finish it. Just try it, play it, and you're good, you know? So I honestly, I don't know. My anecdotal experience is that it's, if somebody's a diehard AC fan, they probably already bought the AC games. So Ubisoft Plus doesn't make that much sense to them because they're getting access to a whole catalog that they already own. But it very well could be significant. I don't know. I really don't know. Can you really save money with Ubisoft Plus? I mean, it's literally, you can buy the game for 70 or you can pay 18 and play the game with Ubisoft Plus. So, I mean, it saves you a good chunk of change. Of course, what they're hoping is that because you spent 18, you're more likely to spend money on microtransactions in the game, cosmetics. You're more likely to go play another game like Black Flag or Origins or Odyssey or Valhalla. You play those games, and the longer they can get you hooked, the more likely you are to keep that subscription for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, where they made their money back. You're going to be buying, map packs, XP boosts, resource packs. It's all part of the equation. And I mean, I think the odds of players, they would not have that Ubisoft Plus subscription as an option to play Icy Odyssey unless their data showed them that it converts to roughly the same level as if they charged you 70. Because I think what they found is that priced at 70, there's going to be a number of people that go, ugh, it's not worth that. But they might think it's worth 30. And then they see that they can get access to it for 18. It's like, oh, okay. And they go play it that way. Because you've seen some people that are like, I'd recommend waiting for a sale. Well, $18 to play Shadows compared to 70, many people would consider to be a fire sale. I mean, that's a huge discount on the title price. So I think that there's a reason that they have it and they have it priced at that level. And it's because the people who are fully convinced that they want Shadows will just buy it. The people who are iffy will play it through the subscription. So they get money either way. They tap into that chunk of the market that was kind of on the sidelines. Yeah, Wanderer, yup, here. I'm not buying this game until it's like 50 to 70% off. Well, exactly. And then if you're looking at it, but you still really want to try it and you're like, oh, but I can play it on Ubisoft Plus for 18. A lot of people consider that to be the discount they've been waiting for. So they just jump right in, you know. According to our sources at Insider Gaming, who have obtained the information via Ubisoft's own tracking tools and have provided such data on past titles, it shows that AC Shadows is behind that of Valhalla, but ahead of Odyssey. Which is, I mean, I think most of us expected it behind Valhalla, but I expected it to track pretty much in line with Odyssey. That's what the pre-order numbers were saying, but they're saying it's actually outperforming Odyssey. Let's see, 1 million players, 1 day after launch, 2 million, 2 days after launch. According to the data that they got, Assassin's Creed Valhalla achieved 2.55 million players on its first day, whereas Odyssey achieved just shy of 1 million, roughly 430,000 during early access. Okay. Well, that's right. Odyssey had a whole early access thing. So Shadows is tracking to hit 3 million players in the coming days. According to the trajectory, Shadows could hit roughly 6 million players within its first month, but it's worth pointing out that the game has released in Q1 compared to other successful AC games that released during the holiday season. At the time of writing, Odyssey currently has the most unique players of any AC game, sitting at over 40 million. Jesus, dude. Yeah, player numbers are not sales, but we should hear more on the game's performance and from Ubisoft themselves in the coming months. Yeah, I think we'll only hear final details on like units and stuff in May at the earnings call, but they seem happy with it.
He took my thing.